What's up, folks? This is Dan from Discern. Welcome to episode 17 of the Discern Recap. Each week on this show, I bring you a hand-picked selection of recommendations, my favorite newly released albums, EPs, or singles from the broad category of Christian music. New episodes of this show release every Wednesday. I would love it if you subscribe to this channel. If you enjoy this content, you can expect much more of it. Subscribe, join the community that we're growing over here. If you want to be more of a vocal part of that community, you have something to say, you could comment below, you could tweet at me at discernreviews, you could send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. I've got 3 recommendations to talk about, and 2 artists on this list are actually buddies. They live in the same city, they go to the same church, and they both released wonderful new singles this week. So let's jump right into it. King's Kaleidoscope, first recommendation, King's Kaleidoscope with the single Enchanted. King's Kaleidoscope is a 10-piece indie rock band from Seattle with heavy influences from electronic music and even hip-hop. Their origins are as a worship band from Mars Hill, but over the last few years they've moved beyond just worship-oriented music into broader directions, both lyrically and structurally. They're now more of a regular band, which I hate that term, but I think you know what I mean. And even in this direction, as we saw on their debut LP in 2014, their lyrics are still filled with gospel truth and rhythms and melodies that are as intricate as ever. I actually reviewed that album a few years ago. I'll put a link to that on the screen and in the description for you. If we know one thing about this band, it's that they love layering tracks with an almost unmixable amount of parts and somehow pulling it all together in a miraculous, full-bodied sound. And this new track is much more of the same in a good way. Before I dive into this track, I do want to mention that there was not a lot of fanfare or a broad branding strategy behind the release of this new track. The cover art is simply a black background. It's frankly nothing. In an interview with Chad Gardner, which I will link that below as well, who is the lead vocalist, the main thrust behind King's Kaleidoscope, he said he wanted to release this track and seeing it sort of in social media feeds to stop you in your tracks. This picture, or lack thereof, is a break from the constant flow of brain stimulation that our social media feeds become. They just feed and they feed and they feed until we're sick. And this song, and in your social media feed, the branding in a sense, is meant to stand out. It's to make you think, possibly make you reconsider things. So let's get into the particulars of this song. In terms of sound, your attention is being pulled in so many different directions at once. The rhythm is a difficult pattern to trace at first. You know, it's one of those where's the downbeat type of rhythms. It's like a constantly clicking and thumping machine with little in terms of relatable patterns and expectancy. The vocals, they don't break through the roof or anything, as we've seen many times with King's Kaleidoscope, but they're well performed. They're fitting for the sound of this track. This track doesn't have blaring horns or really vicious drum performances, so I think his more tame vocal performance makes sense here. One thing I was so struck by in this track is how the lyrics are so accurately displayed in the music. The arrangement actually takes you from where the song says we are to where we want to be. You know, the first verse describes a digital, cold reality. The instruments are sort of all on their own paths. They're opposite of unified. The feeling is sterile. It's inorganic. The first chorus then opens up to a hopeful vision of what could be, living enchanted, as it says. And then it's back to the verse feel in verse 2, senseless, noisy, jungle thick in its complexity and density. Then the next chorus starts to blend the two sounds together. It's open and expansive, but it's still rhythmic and complex. Then the song brilliantly brings a new voice into the mix, a keyboard, a synth, a sound that's actually picked up by a flute later and will eventually close out the song. it's a foreshadowing of the enchanted life that you hear at the end. And it comes in at the point where the lyrics most directly point to God, asking him to hide us in his mystery. And the next chorus blooms in a more full release and energy. And then the outro takes us into sort of the reality of living enchanted. The instruments and vocals are sort of just noodling around. The melody takes root, it finds a home, and the rhythms become more central, more organized. Everything just comes together. And a keyboard or synth just sort of joins with the flute part at the end and brings the song to a close with a very childlike and humble melody and sound, sort of evoking the feelings of a fairy tale, a happily ever after ending. I'm not smart enough to have caught this, but in the interview, Chad mentions that they are actually playing at this part a melody that comes from the Bach piece called Where Sheep May Safely Graze. That's a great inclusion, I think, to the ending. It's a great bow to tie this whole track together. Lyrically, on this song, the enchanted phrase and idea throughout the song is a bit too distant in perception. It's a bit too hard to land home in a concrete fashion, at least for me. The lyric "break me free to live enchanted." It's not easily relatable to our real lives. It's sort of a foreign idea, a distant ideal. It's hard to identify what that lyric means in our lives. But I think that feeling is almost exactly what this song is speaking to. It's calling out to God, praying that our lives would be lived beyond control, beyond staying safe and living tame, beyond the overly calculated lives and decisions. This is more of an emotional, engaged life, hid in the mystery of God. I do think you should check out the interview for a better explanation of the lyrics. Chad describes pretty well the mentality and the purpose that went behind the lyrics. And also the lyrics are all posted at kingskaleidoscope.com, so, when you see them in full context, all as one, that really helps bring it all together. One final thing Chad mentioned in that interview is that this song is actually going to be the centerpiece of the next record, which is going to be called Beyond Control. It's coming out in June. We don't have a definite date yet, but June is when it's supposed to be coming out. I'm very, very pleased with this first release, the first single we have from that upcoming album. It's King's Kaleidoscope doing what they do best. This first single we have from that upcoming album, it's very exciting, and all the links I mentioned to the review that I had previously, the interview, even the link to listen to this song, all of it is below, so give it a listen for yourself. Next recommendation, Crumb and Rob Victim with the album Bare Knuckle Gospel. Crumb and Rob Victim team up on this record. Krum brings the vocals and the raps, Rob Victim bringing the instrumentals and the production. Krum, who was formerly known as Play-Doh even just a few months ago, is a rapper from Texas. His full name is Douglas William Krum Jr. Obviously, that's where his new artist moniker comes from. Also, he had to change his name because there's a company called Play-Doh that would sue his butt off if he didn't. So, Krum has been making music since the early 2000s. He's well-traveled at this point. This new album here is his first release under his new name. The other half on this project, Rob Victim, is a hip-hop producer also from Texas, and he's been a part of the hip-hop DJ beat-making culture for years, honing his craft, working with a good handful of other artists. On this record here, Krum and Rob Victim team up, feeding off each other's skills and characteristics to make a really fantastic piece of work. The essence and the mood of this album, I think, is typified in this crackly vinyl warmth and static you get from the instrumentals, which heavily rely on these decades-old R&B and soul samples, and they also have these easygoing, straightforward drum grooves. It's a sound that's pretty typical from Rob Victim. It seems to be his bread and butter. And these instrumentals, they're effortless, they're humble, just solid grooves. They bring out that heart and that attitude from the R&B and the soul tracks from which the samples are pulled. The vocal and lyrical prowess of Krum is also prevalent throughout this whole album. I mean, even the couple features from other rappers here deliver verses that are up to the bar that Krum sets as well. All of it's delivered with a humble confidence, a swagger that lets the words do the talking more than the rapper. It perfectly matches that vibe of the instrumentals. It fits hand in hand with him. The flow is not really full of energy or pumped up. It's more down tempo, more laid back. But these bars are full of thought, specific intention in the lyrics. The confidence you feel in the delivery is more from the quality of the lyrics rather than the attitude of the rapper. And I'm amazed by how solid this album is from front to back. I mean, it's a great album all the way through. It's bookended by sort of an intro and an outro with mentions to the bare knuckle gospel theme. I don't feel that theme was so strongly brought out through the record in the middle, in a sense. It's not really directly referenced between those bookends. But the instrumental and the vocal dynamics throughout the record, that's what I think definitely maintains a singular purpose and a mood throughout. It's the sound that really ties these tracks together, not so much a lyrical theme. And I do have to mention one last thing. This is yet another album where the parental advisory sticker is slapped on the cover. It's not lyrically explicit. It's not crude or inappropriate. It's another album, though, where the artist is saying it's labeled explicit because the definition of explicit is stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for confusion or doubt. Well, you know what's not stated clearly, leaving no room for confusion or doubt? Labeling an album with no swearing, cussing, or vulgarity explicit. I mean, yes, he mentions drug use, partying, prostitutes, numerous other sinful things, but even a secular artist doing that doesn't get labeled explicit. And he even censors out the S word at one point. He drops this lyric: Jesus told me I'm the use my verse as fertilizer to nourish this foul ground. That's a pretty clever usage of that slang phrase, but he censors it. He knows he's not going to say that word on this album. He knows that's explicit. So, big picture, I think labeling it explicit comes across as confusing, unhelpful, unclear. I don't think it actually makes anyone think, whoa, this album is so real, it's authentic. I do think this album is authentic. I think Krum is being very personal and genuine, which is actually really refreshing, and it's a praiseworthy aspect of this album. But I think the parental advisory label is a bad idea. That's all I have to say about it, basically. Let me know what you think, because, I could not be seeing it from the right perspective. I might be misguided. I might be flat out wrong on this one. So let me know what you think. We can discuss it. Anyway, this is a great hip-hop record. Krum is a very poetic, very talented rapper. And the instrumentals here from Rob Victim are full of personality, full of soul. The samples are great. The beats are solid. They're the backbone of these tracks. I love this album, and it's free. It is free on Bandcamp. So check the link below. Do yourself a favor. Download it, or at least stream it. Give it a listen. It's less than 30 minutes. Definitely worth your time. Worth a download. So, last recommendation in this episode, Zack Bolin with the single I Will Let You Down. Zack Bolin is the lead singer of the indie rock and worship band Citizens and Saints, but on this track, he's a solo act. Zack is gearing up to release his debut solo EP, 1001, in just about a month, actually, on June 3rd. I've talked about Zack and this upcoming EP in a past episode of the Discern Recap, episode 4, in fact. In that episode, I think I was talking about his short little teaser release that he dropped on Noise Trade featuring 3 tracks from this upcoming EP. I will link to that review, that episode of the Discern Recap on the screen and in the description, so give it a listen if you're interested. The songs on that teaser were incredible, and this track I'm talking about now, you guessed it, also incredible. On this new track, Zack is showing us again how personal, sharp, and utterly human his lyrics can be. As we've seen from a dearth of live recorded singles he's been releasing over the last few months, Zack really has his finger on the pulse of the human condition, the human experience, especially in relationships. And on this new song, which also released with a music video, a simple sort of grainy, blurry, black and white production, this new song features very bare instrumentation, simple, stripped down. It's pretty much just an acoustic guitar, a subtle piano, and Zack's vocals. There is a very well-timed entrance, an electric guitar that slips in a little more than halfway through the track and actually only sticks around for a short instrumental bridge. It's just a caring little touch of energy and movement that it provides, ever so lightly lifting the track, giving it little wings just for a short moment. Pretty cool. The lyrics of this song are gut-punching, exposing the dark corners of Zack's relationship, presumably with his wife, the closest person to him, and by extension, letting the truth of the lyrics expose the dark corners in the listeners' relationships, yours and mine. The title of the song makes it pretty obvious what angle and theme Zack is approaching this topic with. I Will Let You Down. It's a direct assessment of the facts. It's blunt, it's cold. He may have a willing heart, but his flesh is weak. As he sings, there's some things you can't avoid. Now, he does say he wants to give everything that I have to you. He also says he wants to give you the best of me. But just before he says that, he sings, despite the love that he receives from the other side of the relationship, he says, I will let you down. It's not a perfect reciprocation of that love. It's not as requited as it should be. But there are some tender and stirring lyrics in this song as well that lift you up, give you a brighter hope ahead, a hope that symbolically points you to the gospel. Zack sings that when I use my words to cut you down and make you small, every bit of pain hits you like a cannonball. What I can't understand is why you open up your arms, kiss me on the lips, tell me that I'm always yours. And then sort of the capstone lyric, so gospel thick in its imagery. No matter what I've done, you've always remained by me, though I've let you down. That's a gospel fact. The love that God has shown to us in Christ is not always reciprocal. We don't reflect his love back to him in the way that we should, in the way that is right, given all that he's done for us. And this song, I think, carries that reality into the realm of relationship and paints a picture of uneven love, the wrongness of that, but also the beauty of that and what it says about true, undeserved love. This track is just one of those songs. It's one of those sort of melancholy, motivational, or uplifting songs. It's on one hand a nice sulking song, but it's a downer that you want to listen to. It's very emotional and relatable. There's a comfort in its familiarity, even if it's a dark familiarity. And like I was saying, this song is not ending in despair. As Zack sings about love that always remains, it reminds us of the good grace of God that saves and loves sinners like you and me. It's awesome. It's awesome. Zack's debut solo album is dropping on June 3rd. He's released numerous releases with Citizens and Saints, but this solo album is sort of a new venture for him. Based on this song and the others he's released, I'm pretty confident this record is going to floor me, but I better not overhype it too much, Stay calm, sit tight. Just about a month and it'll be here, so check the link in the description. Give the song a listen. And that's it, folks. I'm done. I'm going to shut up soon. Thank you for watching the Discern Recap. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribing is the best way that you make sure you don't miss any new episodes. If you enjoy this content, I would love it if you subscribed. New episodes of this show release every Wednesday. And if you want to reach out, if you have something to say, good or bad, pretty or ugly, you could comment below this video. You could tweet at me at discernreviews. You could send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Did you listen to any of the new music I mentioned? Is there some new music release that I didn't mention that's boiling inside you? You're thinking I'm a dunce for not recommending it. If so, let me know. I am more than happy to discuss new music, stuff I mentioned, stuff I didn't mention. Even if it's not that new, I can discuss that as well. So anyway, have a great week. Hope this helped. See ya.